The old leather trunk sat forgotten in the dusty corner of Highgrove House's storage room. Sarah Mitchell, the new estate manager, had been tasked with clearing out decades of accumulated belongings. What she discovered would shake the very foundations of the British royal family. Inside the trunk, beneath yellowed photographs and moth-eaten clothing, lay a collection of handwritten journals bound in deep burgundy leather. The elegant script on the cover read Personal Reflections, CPB. Sarah's heart raced as she realized these were Camilla Parker Bowles' private writings. Dating back to the early days of her relationship with Prince Charles, the journals contained raw, unfiltered thoughts about life within the royal circle. Camilla had documented everything with shocking honesty, from private family arguments to behind-the-scenes drama that the public never knew existed. Her words painted a picture of a dysfunctional family where appearances mattered more than genuine relationships. In one entry dated 3 months before Charles and Diana's wedding, Camilla wrote about feeling torn between her love for Charles and her guilt over the situation. She described Diana as naive but sweet and admitted to feeling terrible about the deception. But what followed was even more damaging. Detailed accounts of continued secret meetings with Charles throughout his marriage. The most explosive revelations concerned the Queen's private opinions about various family members. Camilla had recorded conversations where the monarch expressed frustration with her children's behavior, particularly Andrew's embarrassing associations and Edward's lack of backbone. The Queen had apparently confided in Camilla during their private tea sessions. Never imagining these conversations would be documented, Sarah's hands trembled as she read about palace staff being dismissed for minor infractions while serious issues were covered up. Camilla had witnessed servants being blamed for problems they didn't create, all to protect the royal image. The power dynamics within the household were laid bare in disturbing detail. Most shocking was Camilla's account of a heated argument between Charles and his father, Prince Philip. The Duke of Edinburgh had apparently called his son weak-willed and accused him of destroying the monarchy's reputation through his handling of the Diana situation. Charles had reportedly stormed out, leaving Camilla to comfort him afterward. The journals also revealed Camilla's true feelings about becoming queen consort someday. Despite public statements about being honored by the prospect, her private writings showed deep anxiety about the responsibility. She worried about public acceptance and wrote extensively about feeling like an outsider. Trying to fit into an ancient institution, Sarah realized she held dynamite in her hands. These weren't just personal musings, they were detailed accounts of royal misconduct, family feuds, and institutional failures that could damage reputations permanently. The question now was what to do with this information. As she continued reading, Theyre discovered that Camilla had also documented her interactions with other royal wives. Her observations about Sophie Wessex were particularly cutting, describing her as desperate to please but lacking substance. Even Princess Anne hadn't escaped criticism, with Camilla noting her sharp tongue and complete inability to suffer fools gladly. The final entry Sarah read that day contained perhaps the most damaging revelation of all. Camilla had written about a secret meeting where senior royals discussed managing negative press coverage through strategic leaks about other family members. The idea that the royal family would deliberately throw each other under the bus for public relations purposes was staggering. Sarah closed the journal and sat in the quiet storage room, processing what she had discovered. These writings could destroy careers, end marriages, and potentially bring down the monarchy itself. The weight of responsibility pressed heavily on her shoulders as she contemplated her next move. Outside, the peaceful countryside of Gloucestershire continued its timeless rhythm. Unaware that within the walls of Highgrove House, a discovery had been made that could change everything. The question remained, would these secrets stay buried, or would they soon rock the very foundations of the British establishment? Sarah Mitchell couldn't sleep that night. The journals lay hidden in her small flat above the estate office, their secrets burning in her mind like a fever. She had taken them home, knowing that leaving such explosive material at Highgrove would be dangerous. Too many people had access to the main house, and word traveled fast among palace staff. The next morning brought an unexpected visitor. James Crawford, the Queen's private secretary, arrived unannounced at Highgrove. His official reason was to inspect security arrangements, but Sarah sensed something else. The way his eyes scanned the storage room where she'd found the trunk made her blood run cold. "I trust you've been thorough in your clearing efforts," Crawford said, his voice carrying an undertone of warning. "Some items require special handling, particularly anything of a personal nature." Sarah maintained her composure, but her heart pounded. Did he know about the journals? Had someone reported her discovery? She assured him that all items were being catalogued properly, that nothing of importance would be overlooked. That afternoon, Sarah made a decision that would change her life forever. She contacted Marcus Thompson, an investigative journalist known for his fearless reporting on the royal family. Thompson had exposed several palace scandals in the past and wasn't afraid to challenge the establishment. If anyone could handle this story responsibly, it would be him. Thompson arrived at a small cafe in nearby Theyre, his expression skeptical until Sarah showed him photocopies of select journal pages. His face went pale as he read Camilla's account of a conversation where Prince William had expressed doubts about his father's fitness to be king. The young prince had apparently confided these concerns to Camilla during a private family dinner. "This is nuclear," Thompson whispered, scanning the pages. "If these are authentic, every major newspaper in the world will want them." But authentication was the problem. How could they prove these journals were genuine without revealing their source? Thompson suggested they needed expert analysis of the handwriting and paper, but that would require involving more people. Each additional person meant greater risk of exposure and potential legal action. The journalist explained the dangers Sarah faced. The Official Secrets Act could land her in prison, and the royal family's legal team was notoriously aggressive in protecting their privacy. Even if she remained anonymous, they would investigate thoroughly to find the source of the leak. Meanwhile, back at Highgrove, strange things were happening. Security had been increased without explanation, and several staff members reported being questioned about their access to various parts of the house. Sarah's assistant mentioned seeing men in suits examining the storage room where the trunk had been found. That evening, Sarah received a phone call that made her blood freeze. The voice was calm and professional, but the message was clear. "Miss Mitchell, we believe you may have inadvertently come across some property that doesn't belong to you. It would be in everyone's best interests if such property were returned immediately, no questions asked." The caller didn't identify himself, but Sarah knew this was no ordinary security concern. Someone powerful wanted those journals back, and they knew she had them. She hung up without responding, her hands shaking as she realized how serious this had become. Thompson advised her to act quickly if she was going to proceed. Every day the journals remained hidden increased the risk of discovery. He had contacts at several major publications who would pay handsomely for exclusive access to the story. The money could help Sarah disappear if necessary, starting a new life far from royal retribution. But the most shocking discovery was yet to come. As Sarah read deeper into the journals that night, she found entries describing Prince Harry's struggle with his royal duties long before it became public knowledge. Camilla had witnessed heated arguments between Harry and his father about the young prince's desire for a normal life away from royal obligations. Even more damaging were Camilla's observations about the royal family's treatment of Meghan Markle. The journals contained detailed accounts of private conversations where senior royals expressed concerns about Meghan's background and suitability for royal life. These weren't just protocol discussions, they were personal attacks that bordered on character assassination. The entries revealed a pattern of institutional resistance to change, with Camilla documenting how suggestions for modernization were consistently rejected by older family members. She wrote about feeling frustrated by the family's inability to adapt to changing public expectations, while maintaining their relevance in modern society. As dawn broke over the Gloucestershire countryside, Sarah made her final decision. The public deserved to know the truth about the family they supported with their taxes. These weren't just gossip or speculation, they were first-hand accounts of royal behavior that contradicted their public image completely. She called Thompson and agreed to proceed with the story. Within hours, Copies of the journals were being examined by handwriting experts and authenticated by paper analysis specialists. The wheels of one of the biggest royal scandals in modern history had been set in motion. The only question remaining was whether Theyre Mitchell would survive the storm that was about to break over the British royal family. Marcus Thompson worked through the night in his London office, surrounded by copies of Camilla's journals and expert reports confirming their authenticity. The handwriting analysis matched known samples of Camilla's script, and the paper dated correctly to the periods described in the entries. This was the real deal, and Thompson knew he was sitting on the story of a lifetime. The first bombshell he chose to reveal concerned Princess Catherine's early struggles with royal protocol. Camilla had documented several incidents where Kate had apparently broken unwritten rules, leading to correction sessions with senior palace staff. One entry described Kate being reduced to tears after a particularly harsh critique of her public speaking style during a charity event. What made this revelation so damaging was Camilla's observation that these correction sessions were designed more to establish hierarchy than to actually help Kate improve. The journals suggested a deliberate pattern of undermining new family members to maintain the old guard's control over royal operations. Thompson's editor, Patricia Walsh, read the transcripts with growing amazement. As a veteran of royal reporting, she had suspected much of what the journals revealed, but seeing it documented in such detail was unprecedented. The newspaper's legal team worked frantically to ensure they could publish without facing immediate injunctions. Meanwhile, Theyre Mitchell's life had become a nightmare. Her phone rang constantly with blocked numbers, and she noticed the same black car parked outside her flat for 3 consecutive days. When she tried to access her bank account, she discovered it had been frozen, pending a routine investigation by financial authorities. The pressure was clearly designed to break her resolve. But Theyre had already committed to the path she'd chosen. Thompson had arranged for her to stay in a safe house while the story developed, understanding that her security was now at serious risk. The second major revelation Thompson prepared for publication involved Prince Andrew's business dealings. Camilla's journals contained detailed accounts of family meetings where Andrew's financial troubles and questionable associations were discussed. She had witnessed heated arguments between the Queen and her second son about his embarrassing behavior and poor judgment in friends. Most damaging was Camilla's record of a conversation where Andrew had apparently asked Charles for financial assistance to settle a lawsuit quietly. The journals suggested this wasn't the first time such arrangements had been made, indicating a pattern of using royal resources to manage family scandals. The third explosive element concerned the royal family's attitude toward public service. Camilla had written extensively about private complaints from various royals about their charitable obligations. Prince Edward was quoted as calling charity visits tedious performances, while other family members made dismissive comments about the causes they publicly supported. These revelations struck at the heart of the royal family's public image as dedicated servants of the people. If the journals were accurate, many royals viewed their charitable work as burdensome obligations rather than meaningful service. Fundamentally contradicting their public statements, Thompson faced an ethical dilemma as he prepared the story. While the public interest in these revelations was clear, publishing them would certainly cause immense personal pain to the individuals involved. The journalist's responsibility to truth had to be balanced against the human cost of exposure. The newspaper's lawyers advised that publishing would likely trigger immediate legal action from the royal family's solicitors. Injunctions would be sought, criminal charges might be filed under privacy laws, and Theyre Mitchell would certainly face prosecution. The stakes couldn't be higher for everyone involved. As Thompson continued reading the journals, he discovered entries that made him question whether publication was the right choice. Camilla had documented her own struggles with depression and anxiety, or in the difficult early years of her relationship with Charles. These deeply personal reflections revealed a vulnerable human being struggling with circumstances beyond her control. The journals also contained Camilla's thoughts about public criticism and media harassment. Her pain was evident in entries describing the constant scrutiny and negative press coverage. Reading these passages, Thompson recognized the humanity behind the public figure he was about to expose, but the most shocking discovery was yet to come. Hidden in a later journal was Camilla's account of a conversation with Queen Elizabeth about the monarchy's future. The elderly monarch had apparently expressed serious doubts about whether the institution could survive much longer in its current form. According to Camilla's notes, the Queen had spoken candidly about the challenges facing the royal family: declining public support, financial pressures, and the younger generation's reluctance to accept traditional constraints. This wasn't just private worry. It was evidence that even the Queen herself questioned the monarchy's long-term viability. The implications were staggering. If the head of state herself doubted the institution's future, what did that mean for Britain's constitutional system? Thompson realized he wasn't just reporting on family drama. He was potentially documenting the decline of a 1,000-year-old institution as he prepared his first article for publication. Thompson received an unexpected phone call. The voice was aristocratic and authoritative. "Mr. Thompson, I believe we need to meet. There are aspects of this situation you don't fully understand." The caller identified himself as Sir Geoffrey Hartwell, a name Thompson recognized as belonging to one of the Queen's most trusted advisors. The meeting was scheduled for the following day, and Thompson knew his conversation would determine whether his story ever saw the light of day. The battle for the truth about the royal family was about to begin in earnest. The meeting took place in a private club in Mayfair, its oak-paneled walls heavy with centuries of secrets. Sir Geoffrey Hartwell sat across from Marcus Thompson, his weathered face betraying no emotion as he sipped his whiskey. The elderly advisor had served the crown for 4 decades and knew where every royal skeleton was buried.
"Oh."
Mr. Thompson, Hartwell began, his voice carrying the weight of authority. "You're about to publish information that could destroy lives and potentially end the British monarchy. I hope you understand the gravity of your actions." Thompson remained defiant, explaining that the public deserved to know the truth about the family they supported through their taxes. He argued that transparency was essential in a democratic society. Even when it came to the royal family, Hartwell's response was unexpected. Instead of threats or legal warnings, he began sharing his own stories about life inside the royal household. The advisor had witnessed decades of family dysfunction, palace intrigue, and cover-ups that made Camilla's journals look mild by comparison. "The difference between us," Hartwell explained, "is that I understand the cost of revelation. These aren't just stories, Mr. Thompson. They're human beings with families, children, and genuine feelings. Publication won't just hurt the principals, it will devastate innocent relatives who had no part in these events." The advisor revealed that he had been monitoring the situation since the journals were first discovered. Palace security had identified Sarah Mitchell as the likely source within hours of Crawford's visit to Highgrove. The decision had been made to allow the story to develop rather than immediately shutting it down. "We wanted to see how far you would go," Hartwell admitted. "Whether you would show restraint or publish everything regardless of consequences, your choice will determine how we proceed." Thompson felt the weight of manipulation, but pressed forward with his questions. Why had the royal family allowed such damaging material to remain unsecured? How many other secrets were hidden in palace archives? Hartwell's answers painted a picture of an institution struggling to modernize while maintaining traditions that stretched back centuries. The royal household was caught between transparency demands and privacy needs, trying to satisfy public curiosity while protecting family members from scrutiny that no ordinary family could survive. Meanwhile, Sarah Mitchell was discovering the true cost of her decision to expose the journals. Her employer had terminated her contract, citing breach of confidentiality, and she found herself blacklisted from other positions in estate management. The royal family's influence extended far beyond palace walls. The stress was taking its toll on her health. Sarah had lost weight, couldn't sleep, and jumped at every unexpected sound. Thompson had arranged protection, but she knew that if the royal family truly wanted to silence her, few places would be safe. Back in the private club, Hartwell made an unexpected offer. The royal family was prepared to provide Thompson with an exclusive interview with Prince Charles himself. addressing many of the issues raised in the journals. In exchange, they wanted the publication delayed until the interview could be arranged. Thompson was skeptical. Royal interviews were typically scripted affairs with predetermined questions and rehearsed answers. Hartwell insisted this would be different, a genuine conversation. About the challenges facing the monarchy and Charles's vision for its future, the journalist's editor, Patricia Walsh, was furious when Thompson relayed the offer. She saw it as a transparent attempt to control the narrative and delay publication till legal strategies could be implemented. The newspaper had invested significant resources in verifying the journals and preparing the story. As Thompson wrestled with his decision, more revelations emerged from deeper study of the journals. Camilla had documented conversations about Princess Diana's mental health that cast her struggles in a new and troubling light. The journals suggested that palace officials had known about Diana's eating disorders and self-harm behaviors, but failed to provide adequate support. These entries were particularly painful to read, showing Diana's desperate attempts to find help while being told repeatedly that royal women didn't have such problems. Camilla's notes revealed her own guilt at not intervening more forcefully to get Diana the professional help she needed. The journals also contained shocking allegations about media manipulation by palace staff. Camilla had witnessed senior officials deliberately leaking false information about various royal family members to redirect negative coverage toward different targets. The idea that the palace would orchestrate attacks on its own family members to protect others was deeply disturbing. Thompson realized that publishing the journals would not just expose past scandals. It would provide a roadmap for understanding how the royal family managed their public image through manipulation and misdirection. The implications for press freedom and public trust were enormous. The most devastating entry concerned the aftermath of Diana's death. Camilla had written about feeling responsible for the princess's unhappiness and had documented conversations where palace officials discussed how to manage her own public image during the mourning period. The cold calculation involved in managing such a human tragedy was shocking. As publication deadline approached, Thompson faced an impossible choice. The story would certainly end his career if legal action succeeded, but suppressing it meant allowing institutional manipulation and cover-ups to continue unchallenged. The weight of responsibility pressed down on him as he considered the consequences for democracy, press freedom, and public accountability. Hartwell made one final offer: complete access to palace archives for a comprehensive book about royal history, provided the journal story was killed. The offer was tempting. It would establish Thompson as the definitive royal biographer, while avoiding the immediate legal and personal risks of publication. But as Thompson looked at Sarah Mitchell's haunted face in the safe house, he realized the decision had already been made. She had risked everything to bring these secrets to light. Abandoning her now would be the ultimate betrayal of journalistic integrity. The story broke at midnight on a Tuesday, sending shockwaves through Britain and around the world. Thompson's newspaper ran the headline, "Palace Secrets Exposed," across its front page, accompanied by carefully selected excerpts from Camilla's journals. Within hours, every major news organization was scrambling to follow up on the revelations. The immediate reaction was explosive. Social media platforms crashed under the volume of commentary, with hashtags like #RoyalSecrets and #CamillaFiles trending worldwide. Public opinion was sharply divided between those who felt betrayed by the royal families, private behavior, and others who condemned the invasion of privacy. Prime Minister's office issued a terse statement saying the government would not comment on private family matters, but behind the scenes, emergency meetings were convened to assess the constitutional implications. If public support for the monarchy collapsed completely, the entire British political system could face unprecedented challenges. The royal family's response was swift and decisive. Within 6 hours of publication, their legal team had filed multiple injunctions seeking to prevent further publication of journal contents. They also announced that Buckingham Palace would conduct a thorough investigation into how private documents had been obtained and published. Camilla herself remained silent. But sources close to the family suggested she was devastated by the breach of privacy. The journals had been intended as private reflections, never meant for public consumption, and their publication represented a profound violation of trust and personal boundaries. Prince Charles broke his usual silence about media coverage to issue a rare personal statement. He expressed disappointment that private family conversations had been made public and emphasized his continued commitment to serving the British people despite these personal attacks. His words carried dignity but couldn't hide the pain of public humiliation. The most immediate casualty was Theyre Mitchell, whose identity was revealed within days, despite Thompson's efforts to protect her. Royal Security Services had traced the leak back to her through systematic elimination of everyone with access to the storage area. Her photograph appeared on front pages across Britain. Labeled as the woman who had betrayed the crown, Theyre found herself under siege in the safe house, with reporters camping outside and her phone ringing constantly with interview requests. Death threats began arriving from royalist supporters who saw her as a traitor to British institutions. The police provided minimal protection, claiming budget constraints limited their ability to offer comprehensive security. The psychological pressure proved overwhelming. Theyre began experiencing panic attacks and couldn't leave her temporary accommodation without disguise. Thompson arranged for counseling support, but the damage to her mental health was evident to everyone around her. She had become a prisoner of her own decision to expose the truth. International reaction varied dramatically across different countries. American media embraced the story with enthusiasm, viewing it as confirmation of their suspicions about royal hypocrisy. European monarchies watched nervously, recognizing that similar scandals could emerge from their own family archives if security measures weren't adequate. The most unexpected development came from within the royal family itself. Prince William surprised everyone by issuing a statement, acknowledging that the family needed to reflect seriously on how we can better serve the British people in the modern era. His words suggested recognition that the revelations had damaged the monarchy's credibility. Significantly behind palace walls, the situation was reportedly chaotic. Staff members faced interrogation about their loyalty and access to sensitive information. Several longtime employees were dismissed without explanation, creating an atmosphere of fear and suspicion that affected the household's ability to function normally. The Queen, now in her late 90s, was said to be deeply troubled by the crisis. Sources suggested she had spent hours reading the journal excerpts, trying to understand how her family's private struggles had become public entertainment. The stress was reportedly affecting her health, adding urgency to discussions about the monarchy's future. Religious leaders weighed in on the controversy, with the Archbishop of Canterbury calling for compassion and understanding, while acknowledging that public figures must accept higher standards of accountability. His carefully worded statement attempted to balance sympathy for the royal family with recognition that transparency was essential in democratic societies. The economic impact was immediate and significant. Tourism to royal attractions dropped sharply as international visitors postponed trips pending resolution of the crisis. The royal brand, worth billions to the British economy, faced its greatest threat since the death of Princess Diana. Opposition political parties struggled to respond appropriately. Criticizing the monarchy too harshly risked alienating traditional voters, but ignoring the revelations entirely seemed tone-deaf to public concerns about accountability and transparency. Most chose careful neutrality, while privately calculating the political implications. Thompson found himself simultaneously celebrated and vilified. Journalism awards committees praised his courage in exposing institutional corruption, while press freedom organizations used his case to argue for stronger protections for investigative reporters. However, death threats and legal challenges made his daily life increasingly difficult. The most tragic consequence emerged when details of Princess Diana's struggles were republished around the world. Her sons, William and Harry, issued a joint statement expressing their pain at seeing their mother's private suffering exploited for public consumption. Their words highlighted the human cost of revelations that many had treated as entertainment. As the immediate shock began to fade, deeper questions emerged about the monarchy's future. Opinion polls showed growing support for major reforms, including transparency requirements for royal finances and limits on public funding for extended family members. The institution faced pressure to modernize or risk irrelevance. The story that had begun with Sarah Mitchell's discovery in a dusty storage room had become a catalyst for fundamental questions about democracy, accountability, and the role of traditional institutions in modern society. The final chapter was yet to be written. 6 months after the initial publication, Britain had fundamentally changed. The royal family that emerged from the scandal bore little resemblance to the institution that had ruled for over 1,000 years. Public pressure had forced unprecedented reforms that stripped away centuries of secrecy and privilege. The Queen's decision to abdicate shocked the world. In a televised address that drew over 2 billion viewers globally, she announced her retirement effective immediately. Citing health concerns and the need for fresh leadership to guide the monarchy through modern challenges, Prince Charles ascended to the throne amid the greatest constitutional crisis in living memory. King Charles III's first act was revolutionary. He announced the creation of an independent oversight committee to monitor royal activities and ensure transparency in palace operations. Royal finances would be subject to annual public audits, and family members would be required to justify their roles and expenses to parliamentary committees. Sarah Mitchell's story had taken an unexpected turn. Initially destroyed by the revelation of her identity, she found unlikely salvation through public sympathy. A crowdfunding campaign raised over £2 million for her legal defense and security costs. Publishers competed to sign her for a tell-all memoir about her experience inside the royal household. The book, titled The Truth Behind Palace Walls, became an international bestseller. Sarah's honest account of discovering the journals and the personal cost of exposing them resonated with readers worldwide. She emerged as an unlikely symbol of courage in the face of institutional power. Transforming from villain to hero in public perception, Marcus Thompson won the Pulitzer Prize for investigative journalism. But the victory felt hollow. The stress of constant legal battles and death threats had destroyed his marriage and damaged his health. He reflected often on whether the cost had been worth the achievement. Questioning the ethics of exposing private family struggles for public consumption, the royal family themselves underwent dramatic changes. Prince William and Princess Catherine implemented radical transparency measures, including regular press conferences and social media accounts that showed authentic glimpses of their daily lives. The artificial distance between royalty and subjects began to disappear. Prince Harry and Meghan's decision to permanently relocate to Canada was influenced heavily by the journal revelations. Harry publicly stated that the toxic environment described in his stepmother's writings convinced him that protecting his family required complete separation from royal duties. Their departure marked the end of the traditional spare heir system. Camilla, now Queen Consort, surprised everyone by embracing the transparency movement. She agreed to extensive interviews about the journal contents, apologizing publicly for private comments that had caused hurt while explaining the context of her observations. Her honesty about the monarchy's failures won unexpected public respect. The most significant change was structural. Parliament passed the Royal Accountability Act, requiring all senior royals to undergo annual performance reviews and justify their public funding. The legislation also created whistleblower protections for palace employees and mandated regular publication of royal family meeting minutes. International consequences rippled across constitutional monarchies worldwide. Sweden, Norway, and Denmark implemented similar transparency measures preemptively. Recognizing that royal families could no longer operate in complete privacy, the age of absolute royal discretion had ended permanently. The tourism industry, initially devastated by the scandal, experienced an unexpected revival. International visitors flocked to see a democratized monarchy in action, fascinated by the transformation of an ancient institution. Royal attractions reported record attendance as people sought to witness history being made. Sarah Mitchell used her newfound platform to establish a foundation supporting whistleblowers who expose institutional wrongdoing. The organization provided legal support, security assistance, and counseling services for people who risked everything to reveal important truths. Her transformation from estate manager to social activist inspired similar movements globally. The media landscape also evolved significantly. The scandal prompted widespread discussion about press ethics and the balance between public interest and privacy rights. New industry guidelines emerged governing the publication of private documents. Though enforcement remained challenging in the digital age, religious institutions faced their own reckonings as the royal scandal highlighted broader questions about traditional authority structures. The Church of England struggled to maintain relevance as its connection to the monarchy became increasingly controversial among younger generations, who viewed hereditary privilege skeptically. 5 years later, polling showed that public trust in the monarchy had actually increased from its pre-scandal levels. The forced transparency and genuine accountability had created a stronger institution, albeit one bearing little resemblance to its predecessor. The British people had gotten their wish for a more relatable and responsible royal family. The journals themselves became historical artifacts, displayed in the British Museum as examples of how private documents could reshape public institutions. Visitors could read selected excerpts while learning about the complex ethical questions surrounding their discovery and publication. Sarah Mitchell's final interview before retiring from public life reflected on the unexpected consequences of her discovery. She expressed no regret about exposing the journals, despite the personal cost, but acknowledged the pain caused to individuals who never intended their private thoughts to become public property. The dusty storage room at Highgrove House, where it all began, was converted into a public exhibition space about the importance of transparency in democratic institutions. Visitors could see exactly where the trunk was found and learn about how one person's decision to speak truth to power had changed history forever. The monarchy survived, but it emerged as something entirely new, accountable, transparent, and genuinely connected to the people it served. The price of that transformation was measured not just in damaged reputations and personal pain, but in the fundamental restructuring of one of the world's oldest institutions. History would judge whether the cost was worth the outcome.